Hello everyone, welcome to Edupedia World. I am CA Radhika Singhal. In the last class, we discussed regarding the meaning of cost of capital and why we compute it. We get to know how we compute the cost of debt. So you learned that there are different sources of finance and each source of finance has a different cost to the company because they have different expectation from the company, and the company, in order to generate funds from the marketplace, that is the required rate of return that the company has to generate. Apart from these three, we learned that there is one more cost, that is cost of retained earnings, right? Why? Because the amount that is the amount, the retained earnings is that amount which you have not distributed to the equity shareholders and retained into the business. Why we will do so? Because there is a project which can give a more return. So instead of giving that amount to the equity shareholders, we opt for that project. So retained earning, the cost for the retained earning is the opportunity cost to opt for a new project and instead of giving to the equity shareholders. But we are not distributing that amount, we are not incurring that cost to anyone. Unlike equity, preference shareholder and debentures holders, that cost we are not keeping it with ourselves. That is the cost we have to give back to those financiers. However, in case of retained earnings, we are keeping that amount. However, the cost is still associated, that is the opportunity cost attached with it. So cost of capital is classified in different ways based on their nature and usage. The cost that we are paying, or the rate that the firm pays to procure the funds, that is for equity, preference shareholders and for the debt one, that is called as explicit cost. And this opportunity cost for the retained earnings, because whatever the projects are available with us, there's some opportunity cost, that's why we're not distributing that amount to the shareholders. This retained earning cost is called as implicit cost. Apart from this, there is one more classification like average cost and marginal cost. Average cost, as the word suggests, average cost is like, if you remember that example, we take that 10 rupees is the cost for debt, 12 for preference shares and 15 for the equity shares. So in total we have 37 rupees as the total cost. So that is the total cost. But what is the specific cost, like average of all these three? So we have 100 rupees as equity, 100 as debt and 100 as preference share. So for 300 we have a cost of 37. We can compute what is the average cost for it, that is 37 divided by 3. So that will show that average cost for each source of finance. And marginal cost, as the word suggests, marginal is always like additional. So right now you already have 100 of equity, preference share and debt capital. If you take another 100 rupees of equity, how much cost will that additional equity will cost you? That is called as marginal cost. So marginal cost is the cost of the additional funds only. It does not take the previous cost or the old issued cost finance into its account. And average cost is the cost of the overall funds available with the company. Another classification is historical cost and future cost. Simply the name suggests, historical, whatever the cost that we incurred on the previous project. So historical is basically the actual cost. If there is a project in hand, what is the cost? That will be considered as historical cost because you've already incurred that cost. And future cost is the expected cost. For example, there is some project available, and for that, to avail that project, whatever the funds that you take, whatever the funds that you procure, what will be the cost, the future cost to take a project? So future cost is for financing the proposed project, and historical cost is the cost that is the actual cost for the previous project. Clear? Last classification is specific cost and combined cost, that we already discussed in the first class. specific for each source of finance. Remember, KD we compute 6%, for preference share it is 12%. So specific cost for each source of finance, and combine that 37 rupees, right? Remember the total cost for all the sources of finance. So this is the way we classify cost of capital. Okay, so in last class we discussed what is cost of capital. We discussed how to compute cost of debt. Just let's have a quick look over how we computed cost of debt. For computing irredeemable debt, since interest is the only expense, we do not have to redeem it. Interest is the only expense. Being a tax saving expense, we take the net of interest amount and divide it by net proceeds, because that is the amount we are going to invest further. And for redeemable debt, interest plus the loss between redemption value and the net proceeds, which is to be allocated among the tenure of the debentures issued, divided by the average of redemption value plus net proceeds. Why we take that redemption minus net proceeds divided by n? Because that is the extra cost the company has to incur in redeeming the debentures. Clear? So today we are going to study regarding cost of preference share. Preference share, do you know what are preference shares? Yes, they have a special ownership interest into the firm. How the company usually pay? They'll first pay the interest expense, correct? After interest, they will first pay preference share before paying the equity shareholders. That is their special ownership interest into the firm. But there's one more difference. Preference shareholders have a fixed rate of dividend. Unlike equity shareholders, they do not have any fixed rate. They're the residual owners of the company. So, while computing cost of debt, there is a fixed rate of interest amount, and in preference share there is a fixed rate of dividend. So the method of calculating cost of preference share is same as the method for computing cost of debentures. Likewise, debentures, preference share are also classified as irredeemable preference shares and redeemable preference shares. So irredeemable preference shares are the preference shares which do not have any time span within which they have to be redeemed. You do not have to repay the principal amount to the holder, the preference share holder. In redeemable, there is some time span within which you have to redeem the principal amount. There is one difference between preference share and cost of debt is interest is a tax deductible expense, but dividend, that is not a tax deductible expense. Dividend is an appropriation of profit and interest is a P&L expense. So dividend is below the line item and interest is above the line item. So there is a tax benefit on interest expense but not on dividend. So for computing cost of debt, we take the net of tax expense to compute the cost. In preference, since there is no tax saving, we will take the whole dividend amount as a numerator, that is as an expense. So cost of preference share for irredeemable preference share will be dividend upon net proceeds. Net proceeds will be the issue price less the net of flotation cost. Net proceeds will always be the net amount that the company has received. So if any security is issued at discount, it is a discounted amount. If at premium, it will be including the premium amount, because taking that amount only, the company will earn the required rate. From that amount, the company is going to earn. And dividend as numerator and no tax portion, because it is not tax deductible. Likewise, cost of redeemable preference share, dividend, that dividend cost plus the difference between the redemption value and net proceeds to compute the loss, divided by the tenure and the complete divided by the average of the net proceeds and redeemable value. We will do one example for this cost of preference share to understand it better. Y Limited issues preference shares of face value of rupees 100 each, carrying 14% dividend, and realizes rupees 92 per share. So the face value of preference share is 100 and the company realizes rupees 92. What is the difference between 100 and 92? Issue cost, I told you that for raising of funds the company has to meet certain cost, flotation cost. So 8 rupees is the flotation cost, the cost of issue preference share. So what is the net proceeds in this case? 92, because the company has realized 92 per share and not 100. The shares are repayable after 20 years at a par. So compute cost of preference share. So cost of preference share will be the dividend amount. Now dividend will again be calculated on the face value of the security, on the face value of the preference share, which is 100, not 92. That you have the net realizable value. 100 is the face value. So 14% of 100, 14, plus how much you have to redeem, 100. It doesn't matter that how much you have actually realized. Nowhere it is written that what is the redemption value. So it will be redeemed at par. That means redemption value is 100. The proceeds that you realize is 92. This 8 rupees loss is to be covered in 20 years. So the total loss will be 14 plus 100 minus 92, 8 divided by 20, divided by the average of the redemption value and net proceeds. So the cost of the preference share is 15%. Getting? So this is all about cost of preference share, and this is very similar to the cost of debt. The next is cost of equity capital. This is the backbone of this chapter. This is a very important thing. If you understand this concept, you will understand the whole chapter. What is cost of equity capital? Equity are the owners, you can say the owners of the firm, the owners of the company. We took rupees 15 in the earlier example. So you get to know that cost of equity capital is the expensive source of finance. Correct? Because for debt you just have to pay rupees 10, for preference 12, and for equity 15. Right? So which is the expensive source for the company? Equity share capital. So the cost of equity capital is the minimum rate of return that a company has to earn. For whom? For the equity finance option. Why? Because that is why the equity share holders will invest into the business, and that is how you can maintain the market price of the share at the current level. If you do not give them that return, why they will going to invest? They'll withdraw their amount. Okay, clear? So okay, for cost of equity capital, so for equity shareholders, you not only pay the dividend amount. There are two types of return that an equity shareholder expects. One is dividend, which is very clear. The other is capital appreciation. So by capital appreciation, we mean to increase the cost of the share. So to increase the market price of the share. So if the market price of the share will increase, ultimately the owner of the equity shareholder will earn. So there are two types of earnings that equity shareholder earn. One is dividend and the other is capital appreciation. So to compute a cost of capital, there are different models. Why? Because there is no fixed expectation. Unlike we did in debentures and preference, there we know what is the expectation of the shareholder. In cost of equity, we do not know how much the amount the equity shareholder expects. So there is a different model which is suggested that which has different assumption, like either the shareholder expects some growth in dividend only, or the shareholder do not expect any growth. So we can classify like if the shareholder expects some growth and if the shareholder do not expect any growth. Let's understand not if the shareholder do not expect any growth. Let's say for do not expect any growth means if the shareholder is receiving rupees 10 today as dividend. So in the next year, the shareholder expect that again he'll receive rupees 10 as dividend. In third year, rupees 10 as dividend. In fourth year, rupees 10 as dividend. Correct? So this will be calculated similar to we computed the cost of debt and cost of preference share. Why? Because cost of debt and cost of preference share, the rate is same. So if the expectation of the shareholder will remain same, we know that how much he expects. So the way of calculating cost of equity when the shareholder do not expect any growth will be same. Dividend will be same, 10 rupees divided by the net proceeds, whatever you have received in issuing the share capital. Or if the share capital is already issued, the market price of the share. So the cost of equity, if the shareholder do not expect any growth, will be dividend divided by the market price per share or the net proceeds. So based on this concept, based on this assumption that the shareholder do not expect any further growth, the DPS, that is the dividend payout ratio, will remain same. No, it is the dividend per share will remain same, not ratio. So dividend per share will remain, I'm just really sorry, that will not as a ratio, that is dividend per share. Ratio and share is different. So DPS will remain rupees 10 every year. So there are two models. For dividend price model that I just explained, so how we are going to compute in cost of equity, that is DPS, 10 rupees of the dividend fixed every year divided by the market value of the share. And what is the assumption here? That both dividend and the market price of share will remain constant every year. Similarly is the earning price model, where we expect that the earning per share, let's say if the earning per share is rupees 3, so the shareholder expects that it will remain rupees 3 forever. So to compute the cost of equity, we take EPS as a numerator and the market price of the share as denominator. And this is what earning price model is. So these two models are based on an assumption that the shareholder is not expecting any growth. Let's do an example. For this, XYZ company has 20,000 equity share of rupees 10 each, fully paid up. The current market price per share is rupees 20. We get to know that the shares are already issued, so no net proceeds here. Correct? They have already issued and you have received the market price per share. Earning available to the equity shareholder at the end of the period under consideration are rupees 60,000. So 60,000 is the total amount of earning available to the equity shareholder, and you have to calculate cost of equity. So you get to know that this 60,000 is the earning available for how many shareholders? 20,000. So earning per share will be rupees 3. Correct? 60,000 divided by the number of equity shareholders. So everybody has a right of rupees 3. Everybody has a earning on their share of rupees 3. What is the current market price per share? Rupees 20. So the cost of equity capital will be EPS upon MPS, that is how much you are earning, divided by 20, 15%. Simple. This is what we did in the debt part, preference share, and now in cost of equity. So I'll not explain it more because I think this concept is very clear. Now comes a concept when the equity shareholder is expecting some growth. That is, he is not only satisfied that, say, if he is receiving rupees 10 today, he expects that in the dividend there should be some growth. Let's say the growth is 10%, that his expectation is that the dividend amount should increase by 10% every year. That means today he is going to receive rupees 10. So in the next year, he'll receive 10 into 110% of it. That is 11 rupees. In the next year, that is in the second year, 11 into 110%. That is 12.1 rupees. So this model is like, this is on an assumption that the shareholder expects growth in dividend, but not only in dividend, in the market price of the share also. So I have written D0, D1. What are these? D0 is dividend in the zero period, that is today. If today in the current year, whatever the dividend that I have declared, that is dividend in the current year. D1 is the dividend which is to be declared at the end of year 1. So dividend 1 is that amount that you are going to declare as dividend in the current year. So dividend growth model, how to compute? If there is no growth, how we compute it? Dividend amount divided by the market price per share. So if there is some growth which you expect, the dividend growth model is like, without growth model, D1 upon P0 plus G, that G denotes growth. Now why I take D1 and denominator as P0? P0 means MPS today. So likewise it's like, say P1, so that is like MPS after year 1, P2 MPS after year 2. I have taken D1 as a numerator and P0 as a denominator because today whatever is the MPS, आज की earnings से you will pay the dividend after 1 year, correct? आज ही तो आप cost compute करेंगे कि एक साल बाद how much you have to pay. So today you are going to decide, today you are going to compute for the dividend which is to be declared in the future, because you are not going to compute the cost for the dividend which you have already declared today for the current year. You are going to compute the cost for the dividend which is to be declared at the end of year 1. That's why the numerator is the expectation or the cost which you has to incur for the dividend to be declared. From what amount? From the amount which you have today, that is the market price of the share today. And why we added growth? Because the shareholder expects that there is some growth, a fixed growth in the dividend as well as in the market price of the share. So to compute KE in dividend growth model, KE is D1 upon P0 plus G. You will understand this better with the help of one example. A company has issued 5,000 equity share of rupees 100 each. Its current price is rupees 95 per share and the current dividend is rupees 4.5 per share. What is the current price? 95 per share. So you have the market value as in today. You have current dividend. By current dividend, it means that the dividend which is already declared in the current year. And what do we need? The dividend which is to be declared at the end of year 1. The dividends are expected to grow at the rate of 6%. So you already have the dividend for the current year. To compute it at the end of 1 year, what we did in the last example, where we took, let me go back to that example. Yes, D0 is 10 rupees. How we computed D1? We just add the growth portion. So there the shareholder expects 10%. To compute D1, we just added the growth, that is 10%. We get D1 as 11. Likewise, in this example, the dividends are expected to grow at the rate of 6%. So D0 is 4.5, growth rate is 6. So what will be D1? 4.77. How to compute cost of debt? D1 upon P0 plus growth rate. So D1 is 4.77, just we just computed. What is the market price of share today? 95 plus 6%. Now 4.77 by 95, that is an amount in rupees plus 6%. that is a percentage. Can you add an amount with a percentage? No, you can never add a kilo with a liter. Correct, no? So we have to convert this amount into percentage form first to compute the cost of equity, so that we can add it to the growth percentage. So 4.77 divided by 95 multiplied by 100 will convert this amount into percentage, that is 5% plus 6% of growth rate. So the cost of equity is 11%. Students, just do not only concentrate what is reflected on the screen, what is written in the slide. Please also concentrate what actually I am saying, because that will actually help you, because there are certain things which I cannot obviously write on the screen, which I can explain. So listen what I am saying. Let's do one more example. A company share is quoted in market at rupees 40 per share currently. A company pays a dividend of rupees 2 per share, and investors expect a growth rate of 10% per year. So what he has to compute? So KE is T1 upon T0 plus growth rate. So there is no formula, and just simply explain you why is the logic of that. So KE, so what is a D1? A company pays dividend of rupees 2 per share, and investors expect a growth rate of 10% per. So here, how we compute the cost of debt? D1 rupees 2 per share divided by 40 plus growth rate.